It is with great pride and excitement I welcome you to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Ohio Chapter Induction Banquet. I want to thank everyone in attendance for their support of this outstanding banquet. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize a few individuals. The National Wrestling Hall of Fame Ohio Chapter Board of Directors, Ray Anthony. Why don't you guys stand up real quick? Dick Minacci, Andy DiSabato, Joel Greenley, Steve Kish, Gordy Longshaw, Robin Rayfield, and Stephanie Mendelson. We also have a few past inductees in attendance tonight. I'd like them to stand as well. Bill McGrain, Tony DiGiovanni, Robin Rayfield, Mary Turbay, Stan Malgaris, Anthony Campitano, Ray Anthony Sr., and last and certainly not least, we have a distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in attendance tonight as well, Russ Hellickson, head coach at Ohio State University, Olympic silver medalist. Tonight's a very special night. It is about the 7 inductees we have here tonight. It's their night. I'd like to be the first to welcome and congratulate tonight's inductees. I hope tonight is a night that you all always remember. Tonight's inductees contributed to the sport of wrestling. Their contributions are groundbreaking, they're inspiring, and they're very important to the sport. This group has been nominated by their peers as outstanding in their chosen profession. They have set the standard of excellence that other coaches have to strive to live up to. Ohio has an amazing history in the sport of wrestling. The Ohio chapter has an obligation to honor this outstanding tradition and history. This is an obligation that we take very seriously. Join me in welcoming the 2021 National Wrestling Hall of Fame Ohio Chapter inductees. I believe the wait staff will release tables to go eat. Once you're released by the wait staff, you can go through the buffet line. Make sure you take your ticket with you up there and have a good meal.
Through a lot of trials and tribulations, they're here because of faith in God, faith in the fellow man, and we're just so proud. I just hope God keeps this country in the spirit of wrestling, because we need wrestling. You trace the history, past presidents wrestled, besides Lincoln and Grant, and it makes a better person. That's my biased opinion. Bow your heads in the name of God Almighty. Thank you for this day, thank you for the people, and thank you for all you give. In the name of Jesus, amen. Have a good meal.
We'd like to get started with our program this afternoon. I'd like to introduce our MC, Tom Evans. Tom Evans is superintendent of Cuyahoga Heights. I met Tom about 1976 when I was coaching at Columbia, and he was a wrestler for Cuyahoga Heights. And he come in and he learned a lot about math, adding, subtracting, because we had our first state champ. Had him on his back, I think, the whole match. So he knew how to count lights and all that. And realized the official could count to 2 and select the mat. But no, Tom really is an ambassador to our sport, really across this whole state. He's been a coach for many years, been coaching, officiating, and helping out. He's probably over 40 years in the business. Tom helps out everybody, sectional district up in Northeast Ohio, helps every tournament around the state anytime somebody needs help. He's helped out with our girls' state tournament here we started a couple years ago. But Tom's a giver to our sport. And when I asked him to be our MC, again, Tom stepped up to the plate and wanted to be involved. I'd like to introduce Tom Evans.
Thanks, Ray. 14 lights in Columbia Station's gym. If we'd had 2 more dual meets, I could have told you the rotation of when they needed to be changed. You see in my bio, it says I was a very mediocre wrestler. Ray told me that's an overstatement of what my abilities were at the time. But we want to thank the staff here. Tremendous meal here at Villa Milano. Thank the board of directors for all their hard work in putting this together today. Gordy sat me down last night and said, Tom, you got to keep this thing moving. He goes, in order to do so, we're going to sit Tony Campola right in front of you. So as soon as you see the stalling warning go up, that means it's time to keep going. And everybody in the room knows how Tony is with stalling. I am a school superintendent. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask anybody to pass a levy tonight. So we're good right now. We're going to go a little out of order because our first inductee has to leave to also be inducted or recognized by the Ohio High School Athletic Association. So we're going to start with Dick Lowenstein. Dick is being recognized for a lifetime of service to wrestling. Dick began his career at Oak Hills, graduated from there where he captained the wrestling team, was their most valuable wrestler state qualifier. He moved on to Eastern Kentucky to college where he was a 4-year letterman, captain, most valuable wrestler, athlete of the year at Eastern Kentucky, and a national tournament qualifier. Dick is also a 2-time AAU state champion, Olympic trial finalist. Dick made his mark as a wrestling official. He's officiated for 43 years, over 37 state tournaments, 40 districts and sectional tournaments. He served as secretary for the Greater Cincinnati Wrestling Officials Association, state rules interpreter for 15 years, president and executive officer of the Ohio Wrestling Officials Association for 23 years. Dick currently oversees the Ohio Wrestling Officials Mentoring Program and is widely recognized and presented nationally on the stalling interpretation. Wrestling has been a part of Dick's life for over 54 years. Fred Warren, Dick McCoy, and Jeff Simon all wrote letters of recommendation for Dick. All of them echoed the same words: respect, profession, knowledgeable, and integrity. Dick is married to his wife Julie for 32 years, sons Jeremy and Chad. It's my honor to present for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, Dick Lowenstein.
I have to wrestle with the microphone here. First of all, I'd like to just thank the committee and thank Fred Warren, Ray Anthony, and Jeff Simon and Dick McCoy for writing recommendations for me for this honorable award. I really am excited, really humbled by getting this award because obviously, I mean, how lucky can you be, okay? To be involved in a sport that you love for over 50 years. As a wrestler, as a coach, and as an official. So I've been kind of fortunate, if you ask me, okay? And really appreciate a couple of different people I'd like to point out, okay? I'd like to thank my wife. I'd like to thank who's always stood by me as I went through every weekend, officiating matches and things of that nature. My son Chad and Jeremy, they had to sometimes not see me on a weekend because I'd be at a sporting event taking care of that. But I really, there are a couple of people that got me involved in the sport of wrestling. And one was my brother. My brother was one of those who was always there for me. The only problem was whenever my brother went to a wrestling event, I could never find him afterwards because he had been thrown out. By the time we got to the second and third period, the officials had had enough of him and they threw him out of the place. So, but I'd like to thank him for helping me get started. another person that really got me involved was Frank Schott. Frank Schott was my first wrestling coach, and Frank was, I mean, how lucky can you be to have a coach like Frank Schott? I also had another coach in college, Ron House, who was a great coach. And the two of them, how lucky can you be to have people like that in your life, not just to be your coaches, but also to be considered very good friends. Started at Oak Hills, wrestled there, and really enjoyed myself there. I had a couple of buddies, Mick Farini, Mike May, and Paul Girth, who were buddies of mine who I wrestled with all through high school. Went to Eastern Kentucky University. When I went to Eastern Kentucky University, I had some good friends there. Bill Froman. I used to wrestle every day in practice. Me and Billy wrestled every day in practice. It was, you know, we just beat up on each other for 3 years. Billy was a year younger than me. So I also, while I was there, my coach Ron House used to call me up about 2-3 weeks in the summer and say, "Hey Dick, are you, what would you weigh in?" I'd say, "Oh, I weigh 100 and whatever," and he'd go, "Can you make it to this weight class? We've got an AAU event to go to." I'd say, "Sure." He'd come by a couple days later, pick me up, and we'd go to the wrestling event. So, and he'd wrestle too. So it was a lot of fun. While I was there, I also at Eastern Kentucky University, you know, Eastern's a small school, was a kind of a small school, but for some reason we were in Division I wrestling. And so consequently, you know, when I was there, I was fortunate enough to qualify in the Nationals. And the year that I qualified with Nationals was the year that Danny Gable and Larry Owens wrestled their famous match together. Where Larry Owens actually beat Danny Gable. I think it's the only match ever lost. And during that match. Later on, when I was wrestling in Olympic trials, they wrestled again, but a little bit different situation than Danny Gables came in on top and did a fabulous job. That's where I did one of my stupidest things I've ever done was we were in the practice room just kind of warming up. Danny Gables was there and I thought, well, I'll just roll around with him for a little bit. Nah, that wasn't a smart move, okay? Everything he does hurts, okay? Everything he does hurts. I was a lot lighter than that, but it was fun to do that. And you know, like I said, I got an opportunity to wrestle with him. While I was at Eastern, though, I wrestled a guy every day in practice. We had a guy come into practice one day, and he came into practice, and he came with these gigantic trophies. And he slammed down on the mat and goes, "Me want scholarship." Coach looked at him and said, "Well, these trophies are real." Here he was a 2-time national Iranian champion. And I wrestled him every day in practice. Okay? And that's what helped me get to the trials, because I had the opportunity to wrestle someone like that every day in practice. And he was a funny kind of guy because everything he did hurt too, but if you put figure 4 on him, oh, you know, that shouldn't be allowed because that hurts. Because when you wrestle AAU, you don't use those kind of moves, okay? But in NCAA, you do. So consequently, that was a lot of fun. Also, not only get an opportunity to wrestle on the mat, but I also got the opportunity to coach. And one of my I had the opportunity to coach with another individual who's no longer with us. His name was Dick Roach. And Dick Roach was a wonderful, wonderful man, great coach. And he called me up one day. I was head coach at a school called Deer Park High School. He called me up and said, "Hey, would you like to come back to your alma mater and coach here?" And he said, "I'm looking for someone to coach my lightweights." So I joined him, and I coached the kids up to about 155 pounds, and he coached the kids above that, and with that, we had some pretty good years. We sent a lot of kids to state, a lot of state placers, and just had a lot of good kids come out of that partnership. Dick was, like I say, he's no longer with us, but I wanted to mention it because he was instrumental in my life in the sport of wrestling. There's a couple other guys I like to mention who've really, I like to show some appreciation, especially in officiating. That was Glenn Sample, no longer with us. Glenn Sample is a great individual. Kurt Rockel and Vince Bertucci still with us, but the three of them had a marketed impact on my career as a wrestling official. These are great individuals. Like I said, how lucky am I, okay, to have people like that you had the opportunity to work with. Other guys that I've worked with throughout the years, Steve Long, Ray Anthony, Tony Campolo, Toby Dunlap, Paul Basinger, Jeff Simon, Scott Robbins, Ralph Farmer, Stomatis Bulgaris, Carl Sturmer, I think I mentioned Fred Warren, and so on. These are great guys I got a opportunity to officiate throughout the years, and I really was fortunate to have great relationships with them. Over the past couple of years, I've been one of the state rules interpreters, along with Ray Anthony and Jim Vreeland and Toby Dunlap. And of course, for those of you that are familiar with wrestling, we're the ones that pretty much kind of keep an eye on the sport throughout the season, make sure that the rules are being interpreted the way they should be, and make sure the sport of wrestling is maintaining its professionalism. I've also had the opportunity to work with be president of the Greater Cincinnati Wrestling Officials Association. I've met a lot of great guys there, along with being president of the Ohio Wrestling Officials Association, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to work with those people and to work with those associations, because it's been had a major impact on my life. I'm sure I've left some people out, okay, that have been instrumental in my life. Is Tony, are you giving me the stalling call? Yes. Okay. So I'd like to just say in closing that I'm very honored, very happy to be accepting this award. I appreciate all the people that have come here and supported me throughout the years. And I thank you so much for everything. Like I said in the very beginning, how lucky am I? Thank you.
True story. Tony Campolo one time hit one of my kids for stalling before they shook hands at the Medina tournament. Our next inductee is Joe Carone. He's being recognized for a lifetime of service to wrestling. Joe is a Toledo Central Catholic graduate and University of Toledo graduate. He began his coaching career at his alma mater and was an assistant coach and a football coach for 3 years. In 1974, Joe took a teaching position at Swanton High School and coached football, baseball, and wrestling. In 1975, Joe took over the head wrestling coach's position at Swanton and instilled the attitude, to be the best, you have to wrestle the best, and traveled the state seeking out the best competition for his wrestlers. Joe installed an attitude with his wrestlers that you must shoot for the moon to fall on the roof rather than shoot for the roof and fall on the floor. Joe also formed the first youth program at Swanton. He also hosted summer camps that featured wrestling legends Bobby Douglas, Doug Blubaugh, Harry Huska, Joel Greenlee, Greg Wojciechowski, and local legends Doc Leffler, Tom Talbot, and Ray Steele. Under Joe's leadership, the Swanton Wrestling program won 255 dual meets, 12 league championships, 7 top 10 finishes in the state tournament, and coached multiple state placers and champions. Joe has also served the sport of wrestling as president of the Greater Toledo Wrestling Coaches Association for 6 years, the Northwest Ohio representative to the Ohio Wrestling Coaches Association, and was a member of the coaches committee to form the state dual meet tournament. Joel has been married for 50 years to Carol and supported by his children, Tony, Beth, Christy, Nikki, and Greg. It's my honor to present for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, Joe Carone.
Well, you don't have to worry, my brother time around me, so hold on to it. This count against me, the time wise? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the committee for this induction, and to me it's a totally great honor, and I'm so proud to be person up here. I also want to congratulate the inductees too. I'm glad to be part of that class with those people. I mean, what a heck of an honor, and it's unreal. I want to thank the people from Swanton and Toledo that came to for this presentation. It means a lot, and it just means a lot. You take this plaque that I got, and I always want to say that it's nice that I'm up here getting it, but there's so many other people that deserve it too. So I would take that plaque and I'd break it into pieces. I forgot my notes. I got it. Well, obviously the first one goes to my athletes. We had great athletes at Swanton. So we had state champions who were both here, place winners who were all here, qualifiers who were all here. They bought into the program, and they bought into what we wanted. As a comment was, we wanted to be the best, we had to work to be the best, and they bought into it. And it was great. I mean, for those 30 years there, it was unbelievably great. They knew what we wanted, and they did it. The other one is my assistant coaches. I can't call them assistant coaches because they are coaches with me. They allowed me to do what I wanted to do. They had my back, I had their back. And the biggest thing was, all I ever wanted to do was coach and talk. They did everything else. They told me when, hey, so-and-so's on mat 2 in 2 minutes. Thank you. I didn't get into that. I just wanted to coach, and I love to talk. I'm going to go to 5 minutes, so I'm fine. So, I guess the next one is my family. My family, oh, wait a minute, I screwed up. It's the parents that I had. I pulled the wrong card. The parents that I had in those years were phenomenal. I mean, they trusted us with their kid. Yeah, we were allowed to travel to Medina. We traveled all over. We went to Columbus. We traveled to be best. And the parents trusted us. The parents are super, and they're here tonight, and it was just a great thing that they were with us. They weren't against us, they were with us. And that was big. I guess the next one, one of the biggest ones, my family. I got 2 boys, 3 girls. Their life was wrestling. The 2 boys wrestled, did well in Columbus, went on to be very successful coaches. The girls, their youth was at a wrestling tournament or at a duel. My one daughter, and she'd never forget to let me know about this, she spent all her birthdays at the Perrysburg Invitational. But they didn't complain about it. Those girls went on to work with tournaments that we hosted, districts that I ran, sectionals. They worked the tournament, and on top of that, they went on to college and worked with, one worked with Harry Huska at Ohio U, the other one came back and worked with Joe Grinley at Ohio U. So they stayed in it. So it meant something that, obviously, wrestling had a great impact. And the last one, but not the least, is my wife. 56 years of coaching. My best assistant was all the way through with me. Win or lose, she was with me. We'd win a duel, I'd come home all fired up, and she'd look at me and say, kids are too slow. They need to get on their feet more. They gotta get on their feet. Don't wrestle on the mat, get on the feet. And you know what you need to do? You gotta invest in a cattle prod. Because you've got to get them to move. So, I took all that. I don't want to tell you what happened when we lost the match. But we sit on my deck, and we talk, we drink, we talk, and we talk about wrestling. And I guess the biggest thing that comes out, and she said it, those 30 years of you coaching was like Camelot. You had the best of the best. You had the best athletes, you had the best parents, You had everything, Joe, for 30 years. So it's Camelot. To me, and to us, this is a great way to end it. Thank you for this. Am I okay time-wise? Okay. This is the biggest thing that could ever happen to basically end a career. So again, thank you. And again, congratulations to the people behind me. I kept the time down so you can talk longer. So, thank you.
It's a great message, Joe. I used to start every parent meeting when I was a head coach with, when I would talk to the parents, I said, now there's always that one parent that's in the stands screaming and hollering at the wrestling coach, calling him an idiot, he's a dummy, he doesn't know what he's doing. I would say, that's just my mother. So, it's okay. I don't want you guys to behave that way. Our next inductee is Mark Gerhart. Mark is being recognized for a lifetime of service to wrestling. Mark was a Dayton Carroll graduate, wrestled, recipient of the Athlete of the Year Award there. He went on to Wright State University. He wrestled as a Division II national qualifier. He began his coaching career in 1977 as the freshman coach at Carroll and served Carroll Wrestling in every capacity, including head coach from 1996 to 2005. He's the founder, director, and coach of the Patriot Wrestling Club since 1979. Quite possibly Mark's greatest contribution to the sport was being the founder, director of the Miami Valley Kids Wrestling Association. Through his work with the MVKWA, it is estimated that Mark has introduced over 3,000 young athletes to the sport of wrestling. Mark also served as the founder, director of the Dayton Carroll Freestyle Greco team. He has served as treasurer for USA Wrestling Ohio and been an assistant coach to Ohio Junior National Team, as well as working with USA Cadet National Team and Southwest Schoolboy Team and Tournament. Mark has always worked for the betterment of wrestling, devoting countless hours and never seeking credit. Here on behalf of Mark today are his brothers and sisters, Marie, Leo, Carl, Ed, Eileen, Tim, and Susan. Accepting on behalf of Mark Gerhart is Gary Wise. It's my honor to present for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, Mark Gerhart.
Good evening. I'm a head high school wrestling coach. I've been warned 7 times in this banquet hall. One more warning, I'd be thrown out by 7 different officials. The problem is with officiating, on the second warning, you're supposed to be thrown out, so they still can't get the calls right. Oh, that's right, I'm still coaching. Oh, my. Oh. All right. I would like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for the time and effort sacrificed for this event. It can't be easy. I mean, anybody that organizes anything understands an event like this and how difficult it is. Also, congratulations to all the inductees. I realized by looking through the program, oh my, I'm old. I know every single one of the inductees. My goal today, as many of you are associated with wrestlers, we're kind of goal-oriented, no matter what it is. My goal tonight, in a group of great people, is to explain the different level that Mark Gerhart's greatness was. Mark was diagnosed with glioblastoma in early May of this year. Glioblastoma is a highly aggressive brain tumor. Just 2 months after he was diagnosed, Mark was gone at the age of 66. As was mentioned, Mark was a graduate of Carroll. He and I ran the, what are you doing? Give me a hug? Huh? You're giving me a hug. This is Mark's sister, Marie. All right. We kind of leaned on each other for a while. I can do this. You're good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. During his tenure, Mark and I ran the USA National Freestyle Greco team at Wright State. We had some pretty good names on that team. Fickle, Holman, DeSabato, Freed, Ramsey, Nutter, Wallace Keck, Smith, the Durnlands, and Kevin Randleman. Those are absolute bona fide studs. And Mark was in charge of making sure everybody got in homes and this and that, and was instrumental in really setting a foundation for the USA National team. He and I started the Raider Wrestling Club in 1978 with Coach DeMont Bulgaris' guidance. Mark and I have been friends for almost 50 years. We probably knew each other in high school, but really didn't know each other until we became teammates at Wright State University. Mark was soft-spoken. How soft-spoken? I'm imagining him up here right now speaking. And I would look out, he would look out in the audience, and I'm thinking, you all would be cupping your ears, leaning in, and then asking the people around you, what did he say? I can't hear him. He was that soft-spoken. One of the funny stories, if there is a funny story about all this, I had a number of people reach out to me because they knew the depth of our relationship and the length and depth of our relationship. And when he was diagnosed, we were running the club, our spring club at the time, and I had a wrestler come up, a Carroll wrestler. He came up to me and said, Coach, how's Coach Gerhard? And at that time, I was kind of keeping things together, and I thought, the emotion's underneath, and when he asked me, you know, this 15-year-old kid, how's Coach Gerhard? I started to lose it. I put my hand on the kid's shoulder to get my composure, and as a 15-year-old, he didn't understand any of that. He looked at me like, old man, you didn't hear me, did you? Let me say it again. How is Coach Gerhard? I thought, that's pretty good. That relieved everything, and we just went right on from there. I think really the best way to describe Mark is to use other people's opinions. Reggie Wax, who's really involved in youth wrestling, his kid right now, he was a member of the Raider Wrestling Club in 1988. Said, Coach Gerhard heard I needed a ride to a tournament. He went to a different school. He went to Bellbrook High School. Without hesitation, he drove to Bellbrook, picked up a freshman. I knew then he cared. Other comments. Influential, yet unassuming. The world is a better place with him in it. Would do anything for anyone. Gave selflessly to everyone. A visionary, a scholar, a gentleman. Respectful, dependable, committed, caring, selfless, friendly, and genuine. His friendship will be missed, but his mentorship to thousands of young people will live on. Ken Chertow said, quietly impactful. Probably the best description that somebody used, a quote from someone else. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. I'm truly honored today with his friends, family, to take this induction, to receive this induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, for Mark William Gerhard. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Zach Ison. Zach is being recognized for a lifetime of service to wrestling. Zach attended Claremont Northeastern High School, where he wrestled, played football, and Glenville State, and then transferring to Wilmington College, where he received his college degree. Zach came back and taught at his alma mater from 1984 to his retirement from teaching in 2011. Zach has had coaching stints at Claremont Northeastern, Batavia, and continues to serve as an assistant coach at Moeller High School. He and I were actually exchanging some stories about the year I spent down helping Bruce Hersick at Bethel Tate. Zach is also a major contributor to Ohio USA Wrestling as a coaching director, volunteering countless hours, serving age group clinics and developmental camps, always looking to learn the latest tips and tools to benefit his athletes. Zach has served as vice president of the Southeast Ohio Coaches Association and is a member of the tournament staff for the Coaches Wrestling Classic for the past 10 years. Jeff Geyer said about Zach Ison, Zach is the type of person that shows why wrestling is the most impactful sport to those of us involved, makes everyone around him a better person, and asks for nothing in return. I'm sure he does not realize how much of an example he is for me to strive to do this coaching thing, or how impactful he has been for his wrestlers. I am grateful for having had the opportunity to absorb so much by simply watching how he treated young men that wrestled. Zach has been married to Jennifer for 38 years, sons Jacob and Josh. It's my honor to present for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, Zach Ison.
Well, I looked at my notes. My wife wrote "kiss" on the corner of it to wish me luck. And I thought, man, what else, you know? And then she said, it stands for keep it short, stupid. Scott, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to steal some of your thunder. Folks, when you have a passion for something, it's difficult to keep your emotions out of it. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to do the best I can. Thank you for attending. To everyone in the national office, Coach Greenlee, and all the Hall of Fame committee members, I thank you for accepting my nomination. I'd like to congratulate the other members of the Ohio chapter, class of 2021. What an elite group to be a part of. I have a host of family and friends here today. I love you all. Thank you for attending. Mom, Dad, thank you for everything. I love you. Scott, Kathy, thank you for always being there. And Scott, the other half, the Flying Ison Brothers. It's a term we had put on us a while back. And my sons, Jacob and Josh, my daughter-in-laws, Ellie and Sarah, I'm so, so proud of you. I love you. Thea, Declan, G. Paul loves you. Jenny, my wife, my best friend, you're my everything. Thank you for this, because it would not have been possible without your love and waking me up a lot of real early mornings. I'm pretty serious about that too. I'm not a morning guy. I got my start in wrestling with a physical card, no lie. Coach Washko told the doctor, Mark Wrestling, he was our head football coach, and he said, you're wrestling in the off season. I had 4 high school football or wrestling coaches, The late John Washko, he was one of the early guys to start wrestling in the greater Cincinnati area. The late Terry Smith, who coached me to my first varsity letter as a sophomore heavyweight. Chuck C.N. Ciola, who coached me to a win at the districts. And Coach Paul Schonauer, who coached me to be a state alternate. Coaches I worked with include Kermit Zimmerman, Lancaster High School, Tom Wiederholt, CNE High School, Scott Ison, Batavia High School, John Horn, Team Ohio Greco, James Yannishanis, Moeller High School, Jermaine Lindsay, Moeller High School. I learned a great deal from these coaches, and I thank you all. I worked 2 college wrestling camps, and I'm happy to say both those head coaches are here today. They are Russ Hellickson, former coach of Ohio State, and Joe Greenlee, the 4th and present head coach of Ohio University, and our eldest son's college coach. He almost got there. There are many other coaches I've worked with over the years with Team Ohio and Team USA. To you, I say thank you. I'm forever grateful for your time and your effort. In closing, to quote the late NCAA wrestling announcer Eddie Alaverte, wrestling, the world's oldest and most prestigious sport. I am grateful that wrestling and thankful that wrestling has been such a big part of my life. Thank you all, and God bless.
You know, Zach mentioned the correlation between football and wrestling, and I was telling a story earlier on. I spent a lot of years coaching football. I was a pretty mediocre football coach too, not only a mediocre wrestling coach. I spent a lot of years doing both, and as a coach, you go to a lot of different clinics. I see Brett Powell out here, and Brett was a football coach too for a lot of years. And when you go to football clinics, I was in football clinics with Lloyd Carr and Bo Schembeckler and Jim Tressel. When they tell you something in a clinic, they always leave something out, because football coaches never want to give up all their secrets. There's always some big secret for football coaches. Wrestling coaches are the complete opposite. I told the story one time. We were at St. John's Arena for the state wrestling tournament, and I ran into Tony DiGiovanni in the hallway, and I asked Tony about a move. The next thing I know, we're on the floor in the concourse at St. John's, and Tony's showing me this move. Wrestling coaches will do anything at any time for the betterment of our sport. And that's what makes our sport so great, is that wrestling coaches give so much for it. Our next inductee, Bob Latessa. Bob is being recognized for a lifetime of service to wrestling. Bob attended Wesleyan University in Connecticut, get this, where he was a 3-sport athlete in football, wrestling, and baseball for all 4 years. Bob left Wesleyan as their all-time leading rusher and was captain of the 1978 team. Now, Bob, I'm going to tell you how hard it was to find that information. Wesleyan's been playing football for 137 years. And I was trying to dig up some information on Bob, and I did find out that he was captain in 1978. He began his coaching career at Blair Academy in New Jersey, where he led Blair to 10 straight national prep championships, produced 13 national champion wrestlers. Bob then moved to Lakota East High School, where he coached 12 years, produced 2 top 10 teams in the state, 3 state champs, one of which beat one of my kids, and 16 placers. Bob then moved to Lehigh on the collegiate level for 5 years, serving as the head coach for 1 year, going 11-2, winning the EIWA championship, finishing 17th in the nation with 2 All-Americans. Bob has coached Team New Jersey, Team Pennsylvania, and Team Ohio national junior freestyle teams. Nominator Jim Lehman says about Bob, he is a man of great integrity, an educator of men both on and off the mat. Bob has always shown through his actions that who his athletes became as human beings was much more important than their wrestling accolades. Bob is married to his wife Patricia, and Patricia, Bob told me for many years, he didn't want to give me a number, and his father to Lauren and Matt. It's my honor to present for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, Bob Latessa.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you to Gary Wise. Mark has a smile on his face. So thank you for doing that. I'd like to thank everyone here tonight that are both here to celebrate and are responsible for us being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I would also like to congratulate the other members being inducted tonight. We all know that we did not come to this moment by ourselves. Coming out of college, I knew I wanted to teach and coach. I competed against Blair Academy in high school, so I was familiar with their storied program and their coach, Tom Hutchinson. I also had a high school wrestling partner attend Blair Academy as a postgraduate. For me, Blair was the place. Wrestling from 7th grade through college, I thought I knew a little bit about wrestling. I was wrong. It was Hutch's passion to learn everything about the sport that he could. In the 3 years that followed, I went everywhere with Hutch. In fact, one of our wrestlers gave me the nickname TA for tag along. Even little things like going down to Coach Turner's house down in Lehigh to watch film, I would always go along. After 3 years, Tom left Blair to join Coach Turner at Lehigh, and I was named the head coach. I thought for sure after 3 years of being an assistant, I knew a little bit about wrestling. Again, I was wrong. We all know being head coach brings in so many other variables outside the practice room. The next 8 years were a time of personal growth. I met my wife, my children were born, and the team did well. At Lehigh, Hutch continued his pursuit of learning everything he could about the sport. In his 3rd year as head coach at Lehigh, he hired Sergei Belglazov. Now, Sergei won the 80 Olympic gold, 81, 82, 83 World Championship, 85, 86, 87 World Championship, and 88 Olympic gold. They boycotted the year that I left out. Of course, after being at Blair for the amount of time that I was, being there 8 years by now, I thought I knew a little bit about wrestling. When I got down with Sergei and Hutch, I didn't know a thing. The next 5 years, it was 80 hours a week for 8 months and 40 hours a week for 4 months. I enjoyed every minute of it. Got to work with great coaches, athletes, and I got to know wrestling people from all over the country. In 1995, I took a job at Lakota High School. I was familiar with Lakota because I recruited a young man named Brian Strunk, who was an outstanding student athlete, to wrestle at Lehigh, where he went on to have a successful career, both in the classroom and on the wrestling mat. I was excited to get back into the classroom, and I was also excited to have a more reasonable work life. And this time, surely, I must know something about wrestling. Again, boy, was I wrong. 2 years later at Lakota, when they split into two, I was without any assistant coaches, and I was fired by the Lakota Kids Club. That time I called Jim Lehman. Jim, I've known for a long time. He was a very successful wrestler at Blair. He was currently the head coach at North Warren Regional High School in Blairstown, New Jersey. He gave up his coaching and teaching to come out and coach with me. He made my job enjoyable again. There's not a better person to coach with. His hard work, determination, and loyalty to me personally and to Lakota East program was the foundation of the program. I cannot thank him enough for all the hard work and support, both personally and professionally, through the years. Now in wrestling and in life, we've all had moments where something profound has either happened or has been said. These moments are often opportunities to learn, not necessarily to incorporate into our own lives, but to reflect on the nature of humanity. Relating to the sport of wrestling, I'd like to share one story. This occurred about 6 seasons into my time as Blair head coach. I was having a conversation with Dave Eisenhower. time he was the head coach at what was then called Trenton State College. Dave had a very strong Division III program. He even produced some Division I All-Americans and Division I NCAA championships. My tone with him reflected my winning high that couples with success. Some call it arrogance. Dave looked at me and said, "Bob, you need to check yourself." What Dave was saying to me is good coaches do not make good wrestlers. Good wrestlers make the coaches look good. It was like playing poker where you were always dealt aces. At Blair, I was always dealt aces. He was saying that competing does not mean comparing. It's simply striving to get the most out of your ability without putting a limit on your ability. Dream big. That's how he produced Division I national champions from Division III wrestlers. I always try to remember Dave's words. I'm just not always successful in applying them. Dave passed away several years ago. I never thanked him for his words. I wish I did. As we know, wrestling people are a special breed. I'm proud of being part of such a great community. I would like to say thank you to all the parents that supported wrestling through the years, to my assistant coaches for all your dedication and time, to Coach Hutch and Coach Turner for taking me under their wing, and to my fellow coaches from across the state and the country for your fellowship, friendship, and support. To my wife and children for all your love, and finally to the wrestlers throughout the years. It's the wrestlers that make the coaches look good. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Jack Nutter. I'm sure that you can see by the turnout that there's nobody left in Valley City right now. This might be the only time that you can get a seat in Gandolfos and get a pizza right now. This one's a little personal because as a young coach, and yeah, I was young at one time, you're always looking to get better. And the one place I know we could always take our kids to work out at was Buckeye High School and Coach Nutter. Jack is being recognized for a lifetime of service to wrestling. He's a graduate of Midview High School, received his college degree from Kent State. He coached at Buckeye High School from 1973 to 1993, served as the head coach for 13 years. Jack then moved to New Philadelphia, where he was the head coach from 1994 to 2006. During Jack's career, he amassed 320 dual meet wins, placing in the top 5 for a career, all-time winningest coaches in Ohio wrestling history, along with 62 straight dual meet wins in 5 seasons of undefeated dual meets. Jack was twice named Coach of the Year in Ohio, and is a member of the Ohio Wrestling Coaches Hall of Fame, as well as the Medina Invitational and Medina County Halls of Fame. His teams had 5 top 20 finishes in the state wrestling tournament, along with a runner-up finish in 1992. Jack coached 16 state placers. His teams competed anywhere in the state you would find the top competition. Jack's wrestlers won 447 sectional titles. Jack spent his offseason training his wrestlers in freestyle and Greco, coached USA Team Ohio as a head coach and assistant coach for 10 years, and coached USA Team Ohio in the national duels, and on 4 occasions, as opposing coach came to realize that your wrestler could be airborne at a moment's notice. Wrestlers, there's moves that get named after wrestlers. We all know there's a Chalice Cradle, and John Smith was known for his low shot single. But if you went into the Buckeye wrestling room, you knew about the Fat Jack Stack. Neil said I should have Nick come up and demonstrate on me, but that ship sailed a long time ago. Jack is married to Gail for 48 years. His children are Elise, Nick, and Neil. It's my honor to present for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, Jack Nutter.
kind of following the same theme as everybody else. Basically, you appreciate everybody around you and your family. That's basically the way I felt about all the wrestlers and my family. I would like to thank the committee, Ray Anthony, great friend, my wife, kids for getting all the information out to the committee. I want to congratulate all the other recipients. Like they said, it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, and but it's very, very much appreciated. Probably one of my worst sins is pride related to my family. It means a lot. I want to thank my mom and dad. They both passed on. They would be elated. My sister Marcia has passed away, her husband Rick. Their 3 girls. My sister Barb and her husband Rob, their 2 daughters, and like 20-some great grandkids, our nieces and nephews. But my family's always been there, and I really appreciate it. I want to thank my in-laws. They both passed away, Roy and Esther Grabenstetter. They would go to every match, no matter where it was at, with my mom and dad. And I remember the one year they were watching Brian Bartos and Stevie wrestle, and their grandpa got so excited he jumped up and swung his hand like this and slapped my dad in the back of the head. Almost started a little fight out there that night. I want to thank my brother-in-law Ed, my sister-in-law April, and her late husband Glenn. They're good friends, good supporters. Their kids, Heather, Jake, and Luke, and all their nieces and nephews, my great nieces and nephews. They've been a great supporter of our family. We've been close, and I really appreciate it. Biggest thing, I want to thank my kids. I have a beautiful daughter, Elise. She always stayed in the back. She didn't want the limelight. She's a softball player, and the boys got a lot of attention. We get Christmas cards like Merry Christmas, Jack, Gail, and the boys. Well, there is Elise too, so, but she's a great person. I'd like to at least mention her ex, Craig. He's been great to us. They produced 2 beautiful kids, grandson Zach. Zach's in his 3rd year at engineering at Toledo. Would call me up and say, Coach, all the grandkids call me Coach, so my wife. So Zach's like, Coach, I feel so bad. I got 4 exams this week, in engineering. I was like, buddy, just stay there and do what you got to do. So Zach didn't make it, but I'm super proud of him. He's been on the dean's list every time. His sister Jenna just graduated. She started her 1st year in college. She went to state last year for medallion in gymnastics. Oldest son, Nick had a great career, wrestled for Russell, Ohio State. Married beautiful sweetheart, high school sweetheart, Amy. She's a very beautiful, talented woman. They have 2 gorgeous daughters. Amaya, who just graduated last year, who's attending college. She's a 4-year cheerleader at Buckeye. And Ava, who's a sophomore at Buckeye. She's a volleyball player, doing great. Youngest son, Neil, his wife, Adriel. It was a match made in heaven. Both of them are very talented. Neil's the head wrestling coach, teacher at Bluffton, South Carolina. And they have 2 beautiful kids. My favorite redhead granddaughter, Ella. And Sticky Fingers Jack, he's the one that pulled the winning ticket for himself tonight. I taught him that trick pretty good. So. But I'm super proud of my kids and grandkids. My wife, Gail, it's 51 years, so that was close enough. But Gail's been my #1 supporter and backer for all these years. She's a great friend, and I couldn't do it without her. I really appreciate her and my whole family. So she's an awesome wife, mother, grandmother, friend, and I truly love her. I would also like to say, when I started going over thinking about it, I said, man, I'll be up here for 2 hours thinking of all the great kids that wrestled for me and all the great families at Newfield and Buckeye. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just go back to my years. My senior year in football, I got hurt and I got cut off the basketball team. So I thought, well, I'll try wrestling. So my coaches were great enough to let me go out for wrestling. And at the time, I found out that, yeah, we've had great kids, the Bartoses, the Daglishes, the Shades, the Coons, the Millers, all the kids at both schools, at Avios, that did great, went to state. But I think back to myself, it's like I was a 500 wrestler and people gave me a chance. And that's always been my coaching philosophy. It's like anybody's welcome to come out from our team, and I will give you all the respect, and I will back you 100% in everything, because I know I wasn't the greatest, and a lot of the kids come out. I think my biggest asset as a coach was just getting the most out of the kids. I love them, and they love me most of the time, and they did great. We had some awesome dual teams before they had the state duels. I wish we could have been around for that. But life deals you what it deals you. But, it was just great. I went to community college and wrestled a year. Gail and I got married when I was 20. Worked in a factory. Both of us worked, paid our way through college. We learned hard work, and we tried to instill that in our kids, which I think we did. They're great. And a lot of the wrestlers, very, very successful careers after they got out of school. A bunch of them went on to college. I'm just so proud. I'm so humbled that the kids that showed up, kids, they're 50, 55 years old. They're still kids, but I'm so proud of you guys. You made my life. I believe that you're only as good as the people you have around you. Like I said, I'm not the world's greatest technician. It was just hard work, and I always try to surround myself with good people, and I think I did a good job of that. Two of my best friends were Nick Back at Buckeye and Dave Schlarb at New Philly. They both started a youth program and took off. I never had to do a thing. They ran every practice. They took them to leagues, took them to tournaments, and it trickled down to like Stevie Bartos and Mike Tackle. All them guys did the Buckeye tournament, our youth program, and now they moved up. They're all the high school coaches. Buckeye had probably one of the best teams they've ever had last year. Went in the district, and they did an awesome job. 4 or 5 kids to stay. But I want to thank those two guys. I want to thank my assistant coaches. Jim Sander, he was the first assistant I ever had back at Buckeye. I haven't seen Jimmy in 25 years, 30 years. He showed up tonight. It was great seeing him. Bill McGrain helped me for a year. Bill brought in super ideas. Like I said, I didn't wrestle. He brought in some great ideas and really taught me a lot about technique and sitting up how to run practices. And I really want to thank him, and he turned out to be a pretty good coach. He's in the Hall of Fame. So we had some great people at both schools, and I want to thank everybody. Like everybody said before, the parents, that's the key, having the parents. We had awesome parents and families. It's like different family members at Buckeye and New Philly, and I'm very proud of everybody involved. We also, starting back in the early days, youth, we took the boys everywhere, ran into the Packs and Bergmans and Shamblins. We went everywhere. I learned a lot from Keith's dad, his famous grab his head, Craigie. Bruce was from West Virginia, so that was one of the best moves. And actually, that turned out to be my best move, was a headlock. But I want to thank them. They were great families. We had a ball growing up and following everybody. We also had, like Tom said, open mats. We had great teams. Some of our son's best friends are from other schools, like Cloverleaf from Wellington. And we had great coaches like Dave Corey and John Sedlick up at Buckeye, and Eric Tokinen and Bill Gilmore down at New Philly. And it brings up your level of competition when you wrestle guys like that have great teams. Probably one of the things I'm most proud of is how many ex-wrestlers are coaching, or went into coaching. I'm just going to read something real quick. There's like 8, 9 head coaches. Louis Nicholas, Kevin Lapina, Matt Daglish, John Daglish, Aaron Cooper, Mike Teckel, Steve Bartos, Brian Bartos, Steve Rapanovic, Nick Nutter, Jason Black, and Neil Nutter. We're all from Buckeye. At New Philly, we have Corey Swinterman, Jimmy Sullivan-Wright, Neil Nutter, Dave Avio, Joe Kuhn, Blake Miller, Matt Graham, Troy Miller, Ryan Tipka, Jeremy Myers, Jason Rao, Justin Van Fossen, Mitch Riker, and Joey Lee. And these kids all came back to help, and I like to be on the mat, but I didn't have to be on the mat. These guys did wonders for us. Great guys. You make such super friends in wrestling. One of my best friends, my hunting partner, Aaron Relitz. As the older I get, Aaron does more and more to protect me and take care of me out in the field. It's like, Coach, I'll grab that deer. And it's like, here, hold the flashlight. It's like, all right. So I walk out and he's dragging 2 bows and a deer, and it's like, thanks. So Aaron's an awesome guy. I really appreciate it. Met so many great friends in USA Wrestling. Ben Krugel was a wrestler. He's one of the top USA Ohio officials. Both boys are national champs in Greco. It worked out very, very good for me. I was dumb enough to try it when I was 55 and had one guy in my weight class, and I teched him in the first period. So all 3 of us have big national championship goals. But it's better if I don't tell how many guys was in my weight class. It sounds good. The boys, they earned it a lot more than I did. One of the best friends I met was through USA Wrestling. My golfing buddy, Coach Hector, Gene Hector from Vermilion and St. Ed's, his wife, Anna Lee. We have a great time when we get together. Just wanted to thank everybody for all the great memories. Just can't tell how humbled I am by getting this award and seeing all the people here tonight. I just want to thank everyone. Thank you.
While Jack's still standing here, there's one stat I left off that he reminded me of when I talked to him on the phone the other day, that he was also one of the 5 most handsome guys to ever coach wrestling. Our next inductee is Brett Powell. Brett is being recognized for a lifetime of service to wrestling. Brett graduated from West Branch High School, where he won 4 conference titles, was state placer, and attended Youngstown State University. Brett took over as the head coach at Austintown Pitch Wrestling and served that program for 30 years. During Brett's career, he amassed 261 dual meet wins, along with 4 top 10 finishes in the state tournament. Brett has coached 54 state qualifiers, 19 placers, 5 state champs, 1 national champ. Brett has also served as president of the Ohio Wrestling Coaches Association and has been inducted into the Austintown Pitch Athletic Hall of Fame, Eastern Ohio Wrestling Hall of Fame. Brett and I go way back. We took our teams to Alliance. We worked many, many summers for Coach Hutchinson and his wrestling camp, and Brett kind of looked out for me on a number of occasions when I wasn't smart enough to look out for myself. Brett is married to Lisa for 34 years, sons Tyler and Hunter. It's my honor to present for induction into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Ohio chapter, Brett Powell.
I'd like to thank all the people on the Hall of Fame committee that selected me and the gentlemen that are with us tonight. They've all earned it, one way or another. I want to thank my family, my wife Lisa, my 2 sons Hunter and Tyler, and my mom for making the trip. My dad passed a couple of years ago. He would have loved every minute of this. I I'm going to jump right into it. I'm not going to go through all the hoops because I know being a heavyweight, I'm used to being the last one. So I'm going to try to come through for you. My first experience with wrestling came from my high school coach, Bruce Rohr, and he showed me how a first-class program should be run every day, and the life lessons that he taught our team. And I still see our guys I wrestled with in high school, and they still talk about the things that Coach Rohr taught us. And you do a pretty good job if guys are 30 years down the road, 40 years down the road, and they're still talking about it. So you did your job, Coach. I want to thank my two sons, Tyler and Hunter, for putting in all the time with me, with coaching them in football. I sometimes, when you're successful as being a coach, your kids don't want to follow in your footsteps because it's a lot, and there's comparisons and there's this and that. And, I think that they picked the right thing to do, and they were both all-state football players, and I'm very proud of those guys. My wife Lisa for putting up with all the years. Tournaments, trips to Florida, trips to the Ohio State camp, camp here, camp there. We try to get a lot done in the off season as much as we did in the in season. And she made it very easy for me. Thanks. My brother Kevin was a state runner-up at West Branch, and that was when I decided I thought I wanted to be a wrestling coach. I went and worked with him the entire year, his senior year. He'd had a couple bad breaks and never really got to wrestle in a sectional. So his senior year was his last year and really his only year that he got to go through a whole season. And he ended up being a state runner-up at heavyweight. So he worked hard, and I saw that, and I liked the idea of getting in a room and working with guys. And I think that's when it kind of got in my mind. That's what I wanted to do. A few people I want to thank. Russ Hellickson, just a great guy, a mentor, a friend. He's been a coach that's unbelievable. He was a competitor that was unbelievable, and I picked up a lot of things off him over the years. He's a good guy to bounce ideas off of, and he was really, truly one of the great guys in wrestling. Ray Anthony, Ray, I've been working with you here with a lot of different projects between Ohio High School coaches and the Officials Association. You're a great ambassador to our sport. Ray's motivated. He'll go anywhere, anytime to try to make things work better for wrestling. He's a guy that'll fix things when they need fixed, and he's just a guy that'll do it and not talk about it. Some characters along the way were guys like Dave Detek, that's a respected official in our area that helped out with this. Carl Hoppel, he was a guy I looked up to from Beaver Local that was a three-time state champ and just a really tough guy back in the day. And he was a good guy to talk to when you needed a little bit of guidance. Eric Tokinen, Tony DiGiovanni, great coaches in their own right, legends in their areas. Zach Ison, just tremendous guy. Another guy that you could go to and talk about things that, you needed help with. Jack Nutter, Tom Evans, Troy Roth, Gary Wise, guys are all great. And proud to say you're a friend. One quick story about Eric Tokinen and Jack Nutter. I got in a van once, and we got called down to Columbus. Dave Riggs was also with us, a real successful coach at Perry. They were talking to different coaches with the OHSAA about different ideas that they were going to bounce off of us for like the coming year. And this is a kind of an annual thing, so I'd drive from Youngstown to Canton and get in the van or in Massillon with Dave Riggs. And then we would ride down and pick up Eric Tokinen at 70 and 77. Well, he goes, we got another stop. He goes, they asked Jack Nutter to come. So I said, great. So pick Jack up, go down. Jack says, hey, I'm going to get in the back. I'm going to sleep. I was hunting all night last night. Thinking, okay, guy's out hunting all night. He's probably tired, so he gets in the back and he lays down. Pick up Eric, a couple exits down on 77, and we're riding, and Jack's getting a good sleep back there, and we're a half hour into it. And I don't know, one thing leads to another. Me and Riggs are sitting there in the front seat, and Eric's right behind me, but Jack's clearing the back of a 15-passenger van, so he don't even know he's in there. Conversation was the night before they had wrestled in a dual match. Well, wrestling coaches like to chirp a little bit, and Eric's, Eric, you can chirp, but we love you. But he says, hey, did you hear what we put it on Nutter's team last night? And I'm like, really? And I'm looking at Dave, and I'm like, man, this ain't gonna go good. And somebody should have said, hey, he's in the back seat, but being wrestling coaches, there is no way. He doesn't say anything. He's going on and on and on about the match and this and that. Jack never makes a move, and I'm thinking, oh, we're out of the woods. Because he didn't, not a word. Then he goes, hey, I got shirts made up this week. He goes, you know what they say on the back? And I'm like, no. And he goes, another loss. Well, Jack sat straight up. And I said, hey, maybe you want to take a look in the back. And he turns around and he looks, and guess what? There wasn't another word said out of anybody in that van the rest of the way to Columbus, man. It was intense. So I guess the moral of the story is two things. Make sure that you check the van before you get in it. And the other one is you don't mess with a guy that's been out hunting all night. I'm going to go to just a couple of things that I pulled out of my career, and then I'm going to be out of here. So I haven't got a stalling call yet, and that's great. So I started coaching at Ursuline High School. First job I ever got, they told me, hey, here's the keys. You're going to be the assistant coach. And my old football coach in college hooked me up with this job, and he goes, well, you're going to learn how to coach there. I said, okay. So I go in, and the guy that interviews me is a defensive coordinator for Ursuline, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I figure, well, he's got some coaching experience. He's from Pennsylvania. Well, I thought everybody over there wrestled, and I found out that they didn't. He asked me if I wrestled, and I said, yes. And he said, what's your highest achievement? And I told him, and he said, where'd you wrestle at? And I told him, and he said, you're hired. So I knew something was up then, but I didn't know how much. At that school, I learned how to do more with less. They didn't have a wrestling room. They didn't have a youth program. They didn't have a middle school program. We got guys in 9th grade, and you had to get them out of the hallway. And at that time, Ursuline had, I want to say, about 38 losing seasons out of 40. So it was not an enviable position, and I knew when I walked in for the interview, I looked, and there's a football van that's brand new, a basketball van that's a basketball van that's about a year old, and then there was a wrestling van. Well, this thing had to be 20 years old, and it had dents all over it, and they had the Fighting Irish wrestling van, and even the Fighting Irishman had black eyes on both eyes. So I knew right then that this wasn't going to be an easy deal. One thing I did learn there, though, the coach that hired me, being in that position, he got 7 of the best athletes out for the wrestling team off the football team. And by the time I left there in 3 years, They had had 2 winning seasons. They were the sectional runners-up, and we had a state champ. And the crazy thing about that was that's where I learned if you have athletes, it doesn't matter as long as they want to work and you want to work. And so that was my first stint, and then I was lucky enough that I only worked one other place, and that was at Fitch, and it was the total opposite. But what I learned there was when you have everything, there's other expectations. And it's expectations of the community, it's expectations of the athletic department, and it's the expectations of yourself. And you can push yourself and you can push yourself, and I was at a place that was very successful, so I had to prove myself too. I guess the thing I was blessed with the most there was coaches that were great, and they worked hard. One of the best coaches I had was a guy named Rich Conkle, and he's now a wrestling official, but he coached for me for about 8 years and done an outstanding job. And he came to me one day and he just said, "Yeah, I think I want to try this." Well, Rich worked hard, and he's one of the top 3 officials in the state. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of coming out of Austin Town was they produced a guy like him that went a different route, but got the accolades that he deserved also. The last story that ties me to anything, and it's just a memory, is a guy named Steve Sledful that wrestled for me that was a high school national champ. He was a 3-time qualifier, 2-time place winner. He was 3rd in the state and 2nd in the state. And his senior year, he took 2nd. And he just told me and he was a tireless worker. He wasn't the most athletic guy, but he was an overachiever. And, you know, he said, "Would you take me to train me to go to Pittsburgh? I want to try to do something down there." And I said, "If you really want to go, we'll go." So he went to the Pittsburgh tournament, and if you guys remember back then, have been around it was at Duquesne University, and you either were a senior that took 1st in your state or 2nd in your state, or you didn't get to go. And he had a 52-man bracket, and the guy that beat him in the state tournament was in that bracket, and he ended up winning the national title. And the one guy that was cheering him on was the guy that beat him for the state title. And I guess what I got out of that was, it doesn't matter how competitive you are with somebody, because these guys went back and forth their whole career. But that he was down there cheering them on when it could have easily have been him there, because 4 weeks prior, he was the guy that beat him. And that's what the great thing about wrestling is to me. Guys put everything aside, they'll help each other. They're what one of you guys said is they're not stealing ideas. Okay, they're always promoting, they're always trying to do what's best for the sport and best for, you know, the kids. And I just think it's a great thing coming out of a profession where you can make all these friends and all these acquaintances and meet all these people. And I didn't probably name a 10th of what, you know, I could have named, but you know what, guys, I love you for what you do. And I love the sport for what it is. And I want to thank y'all.
That concludes our presentations this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming. A truly outstanding group. Let's give the entire group a round of applause one more time. And Ray, I don't know how soon they're kicking us out of this hall, but I'm sure there's a few more stories to be told at some point in time. But thank everybody for coming this evening, the class of 2021. And Ray would like all the inductees up here. He's given me the picture. He wants to get a picture of the group together. Thanks for coming. Safe travels home, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Take care.